I am sure that you have been wondering, what about homeowners insurance when it comes to short-term rentals? Does homeowners insurance cover short-term rentals? Is it not covered? How does all of that work with insurance? Is it expensive? Is it cheap? I'm going to be telling you all of it on this video, giving you step by step. Let's go. All right, in this video, we're gonna be diving deep into three things. What is homeowners insurance? Does it cover short-term rentals? I'm gonna tell you the secret ways to make sure that everything that you do is covered and your property is covered and protected. And then we're gonna talk about some great ways to get better insurance on your properties, on your short-term rental properties. And I'm gonna give you some great ways on how to get insurance in other places that don't even have to do with your homeowner's insurance. So number one, what is homeowner's insurance and what does it cover? You need to know this, you need to understand this, so I'm gonna quickly explain this to you so you get the best information. Homeowners insurance covers the property if there is damage to the property. So if the house, burns down to the ground, if there is some natural disaster that comes through and ruins the property, your homeowners insurance is going to cover that. Additionally, if there's smaller things that happen, like maybe just a fire in the kitchen, that would be covered. It also covers things like liability. So if someone is hurt on your property, so they fall down or they slip, your homeowners insurance policy will cover that. And so many times when we're talking about short-term rentals, everyone wonders, is my homeowner's insurance covered in these situations where I have these short-term tenants, where I have these vacationers? If I put my property on Airbnb, is my homeowner's insurance going to cover these things? And the answer is most likely yes, but not 100%. You really need to call your insurance company and see what it covers. Most homeowners insurance policies does cover short-term rentals if you get the right coverage. Now again, Noelle is not an insurance agent. I don't have my licensing, so I'm not gonna advise you on that. Please look up what it is for your particular policy. But in most cases, this is covered, okay? Because it protects the property from any type of damage, and it doesn't necessarily matter how it was, like who caused it. Now, you do need to make sure that you have a landlord's policy, because at this point, whether it's a long-term tenant or a short-term tenant, you are a landlord and those are tenants, so it doesn't matter. So as long as you have the required coverage for having tenants in your property, then you should be covered and you won't necessarily have any big issues. But I'm gonna teach you some things so that you don't end up with a big bill or end up paying a lot of money out of pocket if someone happens to do something to your property. This is so important, and I'm gonna give you some great tips on what to do coming up. The number two thing that you need to know when it comes to whether or not homeowners insurance will cover your short-term rental, you need to know what type of things that it covers. With short-term rentals, mostly what you will have, not in all cases, of course, someone could totally burn the house down to the ground, but that's not typically what happens. That's very rare, obviously, an entire home burning down to the ground. But of course, that can happen, and usually that's covered. But let's talk about what's covered that really happens most of the time that you really need to worry about. So with short-term rentals, of course, you have people coming in and out. People are staying 1 night, 5 nights, 10 nights, whatever the case. They're not staying there usually for a year or 2 years, like in the situation with a long-term tenant. So with a short-term tenant, the risk increases that people can steal things, okay? That's actually the number one thing that actually happens with short-term rentals. It's not necessarily the house burning to the ground or them doing anything crazy. Now, again, that happens, and we're gonna talk about that. But mostly what happens is theft. People often steal things. They may steal things that you want, and then you don't want them to steal. So you want to make sure that you document what you have in your property. And this is the best way to make sure that you are covered by your insurance, is by documenting what was in the property of value. So of course, we're not going to leave diamond rings and, necklaces and all these expensive things in our properties. But we have furniture, we have televisions, we have microwaves, we have appliances that people might steal and that you would want your insurance to cover if that happened. Additionally, you want to make sure if someone is hurt in the property that that is covered. Those are the two major things that you really want to make sure is covered, because the things that we kind of worry about, like them just trashing the property, I'm going to talk about how you handle that and how you get paid without ever even having to call your homeowner's insurance. So let's talk about that. And finally, when we're talking about whether or not homeowners insurance covers your short-term rental, we gotta talk about Airbnb. So most of the time with your short-term rentals, if you've been watching my channel and you've been kind of learning from me and some others out there, you know that Airbnb is the #1 platform on the internet for the short-term rentals. Now again, we have HomeAway, we have Vacation Rental by Owner, we have Booking.com, we have Turnkey, we have a ton of other websites. And the great thing about it is most of them have their own insurance policies for you, okay? You the host, you the person that put their property at risk by allowing other people to stay there. So these companies have what we call blanket policies where you can file a claim with them and they will cover damages, and then they kind of handle that. So you don't even have to call your insurance company in many cases to handle some of the things that people might break, or say for example, they break all the dishes. Okay, I'm in an Airbnb now. They totally could go in and they could just be like, I could just like take this stuff and just start throwing and breaking these things in this Airbnb. And then what would the homeowner do? Well, of course they could call the police on me, because again, that is a crime. People cannot come to your property and just vandalize it. So we'll talk about vandalism and some of those type of things maybe in another video, but let's just talk about straight up accidents. These just all crumble to the ground and break. So what you would do with the Airbnb policy and some of the others is you would make a claim. You would take pictures of what happened, how many cups you used to have, how many you have now, and then they would charge those to the guest, okay? They have their credit card number on file, and usually they may even have a security deposit of a couple of $100. I've been doing this for, the rental thing for a while now, over a year. I haven't had anything major happen. I have lots of friends that do Airbnb. None of them have had anything major happen, but we have had a few mishaps with things getting broken, towels getting damaged, televisions being stolen, a few smaller items. But the great thing about it is not only does your homeowner's insurance cover that if that happened, but two, Airbnb has policies in place if you follow the procedures, which would be if they, did it maliciously, you're going to file a police report. If they did something where they just messed up a few towels, just make sure you take some pictures and you file the claim before somebody else checks in. Okay, so those are just the tips there on how to make sure that you can get your money directly from Airbnb and some of these other websites that you will host your short-term rental on. And last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't give you just one bonus. When we are talking about homeowners insurance and short-term rentals, we gotta talk about before any of this ever happens. You gotta set the rules for your property. And the key to not really dealing with insurance companies and having to file claims is to make sure that one, you set really clear rules as to what your policies are, okay? Let people know to take their shoes off. Let people know that they stained the towels, that they'll be charged for them. Let people know, how many towels you have and that you're keeping track of that. These are just some of the things that you can do and manage in your house rules, or in other words, the rules that you set for your house that you give to guests. Because I'll be honest with you, most people, they follow the rules. It sounds crazy. I know we think that everybody is rule breakers and people are crazy and trying to do stuff. But the fact of the matter is, if you set the rules properly and you communicate your rules of your house to your guests, most people, not all, but most people really do follow the rules. So make sure that you make the rules. Okay, so hopefully you got all of what you need for homeowners insurance. And if it is covered by short-term rentals, I gave you the what, the who, the why, the when, and how to set the rules. So please take a moment and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I have a full course of videos. You can actually watch this entire playlist and get fully trained on how to do this for free. I just love you guys so much, and I want to make sure that you are successful to your success.